right, boys. Pull her on in there.
New Mexico, I-40 like a rattlesnake on glass. 10 tons of pedal on red-hot metal and Jesus freaks on grass.
Gotcha. Well, and that leads us to why we're talking about this life after VFX, and that you're now a commercial truck driver. You drive big rigs around Western United States. Yeah. Louis Katz, thanks for coming on Cup of Joe. I really appreciate it. You got your coffee this morning?
First and foremost, it's an honor and a privilege, Joe, to be doing this with you. You know, I haven't seen you for a while, and thank you for reaching out. And I just want to say there is life after visual effects.
Thank you. And that's been the point of this series, right? Is, I probably spend about a third of my channel time trying to help people get into or further along in visual effects. And then I try to spend a third of my channel helping people get the heck out, because it's great when you find your spark and your inspiration and you do it. And then it's also a bit taxing on life. And sometimes you want to step away from it, and both are okay. Right. That's the idea of this conversation. And then some go back. Some of my folks who've been life after VFX are now back at Sony. So
that's right.
It's how it rolls. You're currently at a hotel in Tehachapi, California, out in the desert right now, right? We're going to talk about that later, why that is. But that's also why you're getting motel Wi-Fi coverage right now. So sorry for any glitches in here, but we'll fix them up as we go along. So I was looking back in your background. We obviously met at ILM. I noticed we started the same year, 1996. You, me, Johanna, all got a taste of that Kerner life back in 96 when we started. But I was curious, before that I saw Rainbow Studios, and I didn't know if that was independent or your own thing. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about where you started and what got you to ILM, and then we'll pick up there.
Rainbow Studios, it was a studio in Phoenix, Arizona, started by Earl Jarrett. And before it was actually Rainbow Studios, it was Rainbow Technology Group. And before that, it was Imaginarium. This guy, Earl Jarrett, was the guy, one of the first guys who took Nikola Tesla's Tesla balls. He made these Tesla balls. He had custom ones made, and he manufactured those, made a lot of money off selling that company. And my dad was really into electronics, repairing spectrum analyzers. He's really good at repairing anything from a VCR to to commercial electronics. So he ended up having his own little lab, and then somehow got in touch with this guy, Earl Jarrett. And then after school, I'd hang out at what it was Rainbow Studios at the time. And I just saw they had all these real expensive computers, the AGFA scanner, 386, 486 with the Targa board, Vista card, with little tablets. And I just started hanging out there. The Earl Jarrett said, man, we could hire this kid. He seems really big into learning 3D. He was learning Topaz, stuff that's not even around anymore. And Targa Plus tips, typewriter. So I got really into 3D at an early age. I became a workaholic at a pretty young age, which opened up opportunities later, obviously. Another studio, Tracer Design, I went to work over there, and this graduate from ASU, from University of Arizona, came and his intern for his internship. The only time I've ever seen him wear a suit, his name was Jonathan Rothbart. So they didn't hire him, but I got him a job at Rainbow Studios. He went to go work at ILM in the art department, replacing David Dozoretz. And then we stayed in touch. I had a tour of ILM, which was great. And then we stayed in touch. And then he said, hey, I'm moving on from the art department to this new department called the Rebel Unit, where we're going to do all shots in the Mac for John Knoll on big films like Star Wars. How would you like to come? So I got the call from Susan Davis in the art department and said, hey, we'd like to bring you up to ILM. I was 22 years old at the time. I'm like, can't say no. I was either going to go to college in Arizona or go to ILM. And so I went to ILM. And that was the beginning. And man, just walking into G building, into the art department with so many talented folks. Like I was the one of the few people that they hired to be a 3D guy, to learn Form Z, electric image, After Effects, and work with the art directors and the directors and the stage department to build animatics, 2D, mostly 3D, just a lot of talented people in that department and and amazing to see what they've done in their careers now, like out there. It's pretty incredible.
The Rebel Mac unit's kind of legendary within visual effects. You know, it's legendary within ILM. They were doing things with a handful of people would do things with Macs. What whole teams were doing with SGIs and other, or sometimes practical effects. But maybe you could give me your impression and your explanation of what the Rebel Mac unit was in the Lucasfilm empire.
The Rebel unit was like this department that was outside the main pipeline, where everyone did everything with scripting on SGIs, with Maya, and et cetera, RenderMan. We were department kind of spearheaded by John Knoll initially, and a group of guys that just did everything on the Mac they could, everything but characters, spaceships, environments. And we worked a lot with the map painting department too. So like even people that originally were painting on glass, now are learning Photoshop, didn't really maybe have some 3D skills. And we had more 3D skills. We complement each other, and we worked on some amazing work: Star Wars, The Mummy, a lot of films, Mission to Mars.
And I too went on to work at a lot of my, you know, whether it's Jonathan Rothbart, who helped start the orphanage, which I've talked about endlessly on this channel. You know, Colie Wertz, I've worked with at other shops. I mean, so many folks who came out of there are doing great things now, right? There's you know, the Rebel group really spawned all kinds of different studios, as well as the ILM art department. I mean, Jonathan Harb from the ILM art department went on to start Whiskey Tree. So many of the folks that left there went on to go onto different studios and either be in charge at other studios or start their own studios. And so it was but again, a unique place within ILM, and it had its name, you know, both in what you guys did as artists, and also the reputation of the department was a bit rebellious as well. And then after that, though, you were there for quite a while. When I looked through your film list, your credit list, it's pretty significant portion is the ILM portion. And just out of looking back, as you look back to that whole period of ILM, was there kind of like a couple of movies that really like stood out for you, like the first ones you always think of when you think of your time back at ILM?
Yeah, like for example, the first movie I worked on in visual effects was Men in Black in the art department. We did a lot of graphic screen designs for the egg screen and Men in Black, and I did a few matte painting designs. And that just the first movie I worked on was just happened to be a great film. We got to meet Barry Sonnenfeld, and that was good. And a lot of times you work on the big film, and it's real stressful. Everyone's jockeying for position. So there's a lot of demands on it. And for example, like a smaller film, maybe not as good, but still okay movie, like Mission to Mars, we just did some great work. I got to model this Earth return vehicle that was built by the model shop department. Got to build this resupply module, and it was just great to work with John Knoll and the whole team. And man, great to work with guys like Scott Farrar. One thing that was amazing was I did this animatic for this shot that was going to be in The Mummy, and they shot the plate in Morocco, and I got to work on Star Wars. And then a year later, about 3 months before finishing Star Wars, Craig Newman called me into a private meeting. He goes, "Hey, we want you to work on a certain shot." I'm like, "No." Yes, it's the opening shot for The Mummy. That opening shot for The Mummy, we had to buy a special server with a lot of extra hard disk space to accommodate all the elements and all the footage, the green screen footage that we shot on stage, hundreds of actors. ILM worked on that shot, the model shop, the model shop, the saber department, which was using Flame Inferno. And it was amazing that we were able to put that shot together in After Effects last minute, 1 week before the film was coming out. And I remember Yusei Westy, the amazing matte painter, a lot of history, like he actually gave me a pat on the back, like, wow, that's like earning Yusei's respect is like, wow, earning like the Dalai Lama's respect in spirituality. Having after left ILM, some certain people I kept in touch with, became roommates with, they became roommates with me. There's a lot of people say, I want to become a director, but there's two people that I'm aware of that did become directors, Scott Leberecht and Warren Fu. Warren Fu with amazing music videos, commercials. I had the opportunity to work with him on this music video for The Strokes, which was incredible back in the day. And now he just directed music video for Dua Lipa, for Daft Punk, and he got signed by Partisan. And Scott Leberecht literally just directed Spaz's movie, you know, and we did a lot of work together. And
That's a great segue to talking about Spaz here, because I'd also noticed after ILM, you worked with Spaz, I guess. And for those of you who don't know, I say Spaz, I'll include a link here. Scott Leberecht was who worked in the art department there at ILM, has gone off to direct some great movies. Life After Pi was a documentary
that was
he did.
great. Yeah,
That was great. That talked about sort of the VFX implosion that happened after the Rhythm and Hughes made Life of Pi. He made a documentary, Life After Pi, and then he also recently has, like this week, is at South by Southwest, debuting Spaz, the movie about this gentleman named Spaz, which the movie will tell you mostly about him, but he's historic in visual effects, especially at ILM. He did the first CG dinosaurs and also did a lot of the first Abyss metal water stuff that people saw. He was a bit of the magic behind ILM, when there was just a few doing that level of magic. He's also a very interesting character.
Yeah.
So
I remember back in Arizona as a teenager, I saw the movies Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, and The Abyss, and I started subscribing to Cinefx. I saw Paul Houston on an IMAX film making of movies. I would watch the Discovery Channels like Movie Magic, and I remember seeing behind the scenes with Spaz, and I was going to join the military as a superior cadet in the Army ROTC and become a fighter pilot. I took flight lessons, but those 3 films and working at Rainbow Studios said, you know what, that's what I want to do, visual effects. I ended up working obviously at ILM, and I actually emailed Spaz at ilm.com. I said, hey, I just got here, I'd like to meet you. He said, yeah, come over to this C building, come over to this downstairs in this room. And it was called The Pit. And he's in there, he turns around, like, what's up, young man? And, I said, I'm here to, just want to meet you, whatever, yada, yada. And then a couple weeks later, I was working on Spawn, animatics for Spawn with Scott and Spaz. And then after I left ILM, I had the opportunity. I was in LA briefly for 3 months working in Digital Domain on the day after tomorrow. And I said, I'm going back to the Bay Area. So an opportunity came up to work on Spaz's film with Clint Goldman for Disney's The Wild. And that was great. Chris Farmer, production designer. Scott was there doing storyboards, a bunch of people from ILM, Eric Chang doing set design, actual architecture. And Spaz, just we had little dailies, and that was a great night. It was a little crazy 9 months. We got to meet Michael Eisner, he was real quiet, but then maybe a week later, William Shatner came in. He was real animated. He'd love to see our work. That was cool. And he's like, what do you show me this? And so that was great.
And so after that, this is where you sort of did the rounds, and you jumped from lily pad to lily pad of all the best studios out there, right? You went to Giant Killer Robots, which one of those hungry studios that was a little younger, a little newer, and then Sony Pictures ImageWorks.
I got to say, you mentioned Sony. That was probably one of my favorite projects. Working on, maybe not the best film. Superman Returns, okay film, but the crew we had was amazing at Sony, and I was truly doing what I really wanted to do for years, but never really had the opportunity, or the puzzles the pieces didn't really fit, was exactly lighting and compositing. That was amazing. 9 months. I really worked my ass off on that film, did some great shots, some great work.
To DreamWorks Animation, doing some matte painting, compositing. Right. And then I saw you jump up to Rodeo Effects. Yeah. Now was that actually in Montreal, or did you work out of a local office?
Yeah, that was in Montreal. I got pretty spoiled over there, put up in the old port, which looks like Paris, working for Resident Evil Afterlife. And that was kind of the beginning of what led to what I'm doing now. Wow. Being a workaholic at a young age, and like not really going to college and getting that partying out of my system, I kind of took the opportunity for granted because they were paying me really well. It was a good opportunity. I did some good work, but then I started partying too much away from my family, partying too much in Montreal, and that led to some issues that became progressive issues later. But it was amazing to be there, in Montreal, another foreign country.
Yeah, Montreal is an amazing city. It does feel like, if you're haven't been to Paris or France, and it definitely feels like you're in France. And I profess that 9 years ago, when we came up here to Vancouver, sister city on the other side, we definitely enjoyed the lure of a port city for a few years there before we cooled out. So I get it. It's we are in the movie business,
right?
But again, you still went on some other shops. But this is where, after Universal Studios, down back in LA. So kind of grounded back there. Then here's where your international thing really took off. It looks like you went to first prime focus in India, and then probably directly after that or shortly after that, you went over to Base Effects in Beijing in 2014, when it was still a little more cool to be an American VFX worker in China than the last few years. Your international experience there, what was that like? I mean, that's very different than Phoenix and even the Bay Area, huh?
Yeah, it was. I got to say that just pretty amazing what Prime Focus has done, having started in India out of a garage, a couple guys, and then when they've blown up huge and ended up merging or buying out DNEG, and now they're doing unbelievable work, and I gotta say, there's just as many talented people in India, especially China, as there are in the US. Like I was shocked when I went to China, like the compositors, that there were skills with their scripting and the color, and you should see their node graphs and new. The 25-year-old, I was like, I guess 40 at the time, the 25-year-old kids there were nuking circles around me. It's amazing. So yeah, don't think that they can't do any good work.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because I don't want to, I usually don't try to get too controversial, but there was always a tinge of sort of an underlying discounting of the workforces of the other countries coming out of the States and out of the West during those, mid 2000s, when it was like, oh, they just can't do good work out there. And it's like, the work ethic's off the chart, the education's off the chart. Like, why wouldn't they be excelling great? Like it's not genetic, man. It's skills and time and energy.
It's the education, the work ethic.
Everyone I've worked with from India, either over there or over here, meaning remotely, because I've worked with a lot of studios from India and folks from India, or folks I've hired from India over here, are just some of the best workers I've ever had, hands down. And in China, the biggest problem they have, at least in more recent years, is the retaining of talent. So as soon as somebody gets good enough, they're popping over here to the West. So that's like a different problem to have with the workforce. And that's because they're siphoning out the brain drain of the best clients, their best talent off-site. But India has kept its folks local a lot more. And heck, we know folks that were at ILM that have gone back to India and started great careers or built whole empires. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I've always felt it was misguided and misdirected, the assessment of what this overseas work is going to be, starting with going all the way back to when ILM started using Singapore as if that was some sort of low-end outsourcing. And leads me to, I noticed Ocean Storm, you did some time after all of this work traveling around the world, building experiences in other countries. You then became a producer, and it's interesting, I guess, is this on here, it's Ocean Storm Films, is that the Is that
it's more of an aspiring producer? But I would say once we finish this particular project, and it's been quite a journey on this one. Once we finish this one, I hope to show it around, show it to other members of Visual Effects Society, et cetera, and hopefully maybe get more. If not, it's just a hobby for me at this time, doing what I'm doing now, which is amazing.
Gotcha. Well, and that leads us to why we're talking about this life after VFX. I noticed recently that you took on a career that's near and dear to my heart, although it doesn't really get talked about on this channel very much, and that you're now a commercial truck driver. You drive big rigs around Western United States. Absolutely. Convoy and all that, all the 70s references that you and I can pull out that no one will get. But you're on the open road now. This is why you're at Tehachapi, and which is basically down by the Mojave Desert, for those who don't know, in the mountains. You're there.
The truck's right across the street at Flying J truck stop. I grabbed everything I need from the truck yesterday and grabbed, for this little spot. I mean, a year ago, April 1st, April Fool's Day, I called this company and said, hey, I'd like to become a truck driver. They moved really fast. I was in school like a couple weeks later. It took a month of training. It's a company that's been around 100 years. It's a family-owned company. They got 6,000 trucks. They deliver all over the U.S. It's amazing. My office is amazing because I feel like I'm driving in a realistic map painting. I'm looking at Tehachapi right here, which has snow on top of the mountains. I'm in Mount Shasta. I'm in Washington. I'm in the Georgia Pacific Fleet, which is 11 Western states. It's kind of ironic. Originally growing up in Minnesota, I would deliver newspapers at 5 a.m. in blizzard type temperature weather. And now I'm delivering paper products in 11 Western states and up to 80,000 pounds driving around. It's really dangerous, but man, with just what I've learned the past 5 years with prayer, meditation, getting centered, getting focused, following all the key safety principles, it's amazing. It's all fun and games until I turn the key and start rolling. you know.
Yeah, people don't realize that it's become much more like a professional trucker. It's not exactly like being an airline pilot, but it's closer to that than just being on your weekend road trip. Meaning there's lists, there's logs, there's time frames, there's rules about how many hours you can drive.
For example, right now I'm on a 34-hour reset. Like after these 34 hours, the truck sits there for 34 hours, I can go back to another 70 hours and 80 hours and be on the road. Like I'm going to be picking up a load in Ontario, at Georgia Pacific, and heading to Salt Lake City by Thursday, and then wherever they send me next. It's hard to describe. I had no idea. Like I was going to be a fighter pilot, but this is like a good compromise. Like, man, driving this thing, it's like and as a result, I've been able to reconnect with people I haven't talked to in a long time. Like for example, Neil Lim Sang. Through Facebook, whatever. And I discovered an uncle I didn't even know I had. Been driving trucks 45 years, just retired. I met him and my aunt in Salt Lake City. And I just rotate once a month. I see different people. Like I'm going to see some people up in Seattle soon, the Bay Area. I got a daughter in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, people that help me out, my family in Arizona, and just keep rotating around. And the company pays for the fuel with these new high gas prices. I don't care.
That's an important part about this. I mean, a lot of the folks who switch over their life after VFX decision will often involve some entrepreneurial launch. We've got Jody who went off to go be a psychotherapist. We have somebody who's off being a YouTuber, somebody who started a chocolate factory. Very different, but with each of those comes a certain amount of economic risk. And then there's folks who maybe switch to just a different career. In this sense, it wasn't necessarily a huge economic risk in the sense you weren't investing your life in a truck. For a lot of smaller independent truckers, they actually will buy their own truck, and they're essentially independent contractors having to really watch every dime and nickel. And when you're with a larger company, you get the economies of scales, you get the company credit card that pays for the gas, and you don't quite have to drive yourself nuts like these poor drivers do. I think we were talking offline. An example might be, you get there, stuck in traffic on a Friday, and the shop closes at 5, and you can't do your delivery till Monday. What are you going to do all weekend? Well, in this case, his company would figure out a way to cover that, transfer the load, something. If you're independent, well, you better just sit tight as cheap as possible in a truck stop and wait out the weekend. That's not as fun, right? So it's great that you took on, much like when you worked at these larger corporations, the Lucasfilms, the Disneys, aligning yourself sometimes with a large corporation, even if you're a cog in the wheel and a piece of the machine of a corp, you are also protected and insulated from all the craziness and insurance issues that independents have to deal with. So I applaud the approach you took. And one more thing about that, if you are thinking of going out into this area, I mean, it's not the most traditional area for visual effects folks to go, but I will actually say I've talked to my wife about this recently, because this industry is dying for drivers, for quality drivers. So would you, if somebody had an interest in this, is this something that you would recommend as someone who's been doing it now for a while?
Trucking for sure is it's not the easiest job, but it has a lot of rewards. Like half the day is a pain in the ass, half the day is just amazing, because you're gonna have to deal with other drivers, but it can be very lucrative. It's a lot of the older drivers are retiring, and a lot of young people are kind of worried about getting into it. They feel maybe it's too dangerous, but this particular company and the other three other companies have really good training. They're automatic trucks, not stick shifts anymore. It's not as dangerous as it used to be, and it can be tough on families, but after you just have to get your year experience, then it can open up other opportunities for maybe more home time, more flexibility, but I'm coming up on a year, knock on wood, so far so good, no accidents, no tickets, no late loads. You got to be on time, and it's quite an adventure, and it's like you can take someone who's homeless or from Skid Row, as long as they don't have any felonies or a DUI and they don't smoke weed and don't do anything, and they want to get their life back on track. This company will they'll put you up at a hotel and train you, see the country, any of the lower 48 states. And like you mentioned, buying, a lot of people say, just go out and buy your own truck. That's not so simple. I listened to a podcast, audible podcast about owner operator trucking. And there's a lot of stuff you got to register for, a lot of permits. If you had like a wife who's willing to be a broker, sit back and call dispatch and do all the registration and everything you got to do behind the scenes, then you guys bought a truck and you get loads, that you could actually make a lot of money, quite a bit. But try to do it solo by yourself, I don't recommend that. You got to have a team, you and a partner doing that.
Yeah, you point out there's a lot of administration, and to be safe, that administration can't happen while you're on the road. This isn't the time anymore where you can, flip open your phone and take on a call and take some notes, especially if you're driving anything that's heavy. I mean, the reason I took interest in this was because I always wanted to be a truck driver. My family came from truck drivers, and
Right.
I chose a different route. But I travel with my my only 12,000 pounds of travel down the road with my
Right.
truck and trailer.
Yeah.
But even then, relative to cars, I have a stopping distance that's 3 to 4 times what your average
Yeah,
car is.
exactly. Yep.
When I have to do an evasive maneuver on this last trip, I had to do a quick evasive maneuver on the freeway and almost got the trailer up on 2 wheels for a minute there.
Well,
It was spooky as
yeah.
heck. I had the whole freeway slow down behind me and kind of
Yep.
give me a minute before they started passing me again. But I did avoid the obstacle in the road, and that's the important part. But that's not the same thing as being in a modern car with all the automatic brakes. You have to be very conscious, and it's why, like I was saying earlier, you have to think of it like a pilot. Like you've got your rules, you've
Right.
got your checklists.
Yep.
Even when we're traveling on the road, we go through our checklist. If I'm traveling solo, the music's almost never on, to be honest. I'm more
Right.
focused on just taking in the experience. And it's important. So, and I'll say this in defense of the entire trucking industry, for those of you out there who don't understand, there's a rogue people out there driving badly everywhere, but your average North American truck driver is one of the best trained, safest drivers on the road. So
Yeah,
they're the ones you have to least worry about. It's all the yahoos pulling in front of them and doing stupid things. The
true.
truckers are rarely the problem in most traffic situations.
every day I get close calls, whether it be someone merging on the freeway, or just a lot of people. The biggest problem, people tailgate and they want to, they're impatient. The 3 worst places to drive are Los Angeles, Denver, and Dallas. It's, man, anytime I have to go to Southern California, I'm just like, right. And there's a new trend in big cities where there used to be 3 lanes. Now they'll make more traffic. They'll have 4 lanes, and the lanes are skinnier. There's inches on each side of the truck. I mean, we can't. It's like playing a video game. You can't make one mistake. Every day you get up, do one day at a time thing. You get up and do it again. It can't be one mistake. Our career's over, just like that. Every day when I finally get to the truck stop, like, oh, thank God. Usually it's very 100% smooth there. My favorite place to drive though is like Mount Shasta, Northern California, and Oregon, through Grants Pass, beautiful, or anywhere there's mountains. The more dangerous the drive is, the more beautiful it is as well. Because like the mountain grades and everything, but it's fun.
Yeah. If where you're at right now in the Mojave Pass, if you're in the rain, which I've done it, I've come back at night in the rain with a trailer, and it was a very unfun evening. I think we stopped at Tehachapi at a certain point because it just got to be too crazy. But yeah, you got to be real careful out there. And so I'm glad that you're making safety the first, third, and fifth thing you're talking about as you talk about this, because it's so important.
It can be a lucrative career, and it's definitely in demand right now. And I don't see anytime soon it's going to dwindle, because there's opportunity. You can work the ports, get your TWIC card, work the ports from San Pedro in Los Angeles or Portland, Oregon, or the Bay Area, and do really well. You can travel across the country, and you can. It's got 2 bunks in the back. You can put a microwave and fridge in there. It's a little challenging working out. Like I worked out in the gym this morning at the hotel here while I had an opportunity. But I go for long walks. I love taking photos. So I put those in. I love once a month I'll post on the group's Facebook photos. Maybe a little bit of my background kind of helps with that, and just share the journey.
It's and so truckers have to put a lot of extra energy into staying healthy to offset the hours of sitting. Exactly. And the fact that your Flying J doesn't necessarily offer a wide range of good foods. I mean, there's bananas and there's nuts, and that's about it. Everything else is kind of starts to get a little unhealthy.
And like, it's just an adventure to, like, I don't know where I'm going next, but I'm on a dedicated fleet now, so it's kind of the same route, but like after Salt Lake City, wherever they send me next. And
the view always changes. I can drive the same route 5 times to the west. It's always changing, the weather, the different times of year,
seasons. Exactly. Yeah.
And so I usually ask people at the end of this if they'd ever go back to the movie business. To some extent, you've never quite left, it seems. But do you foresee a time when you could be working on a show full time again, or
someone likes it and says, "Hey, we could use a full-time visual effects and animation producer"? I'd be willing to take up that opportunity. Maybe take a break from trucking, but maybe work it out where I can still truck and do that, because you can do Zoom from the truck. I got a laptop, you got the phone.
Starlink mobile will be coming here in the next 6 months or so. You'll be able to have your Starlink. And that's the whole RV industry is just waiting for. So then it all changes. I travel in my RV and will work sometimes from the road, but I have to have a good 2 or 3 bars on my local TELUS Canadian provider. Once I can get to Starlink, though, then I have a generator. I can go anywhere. And believe me, I will be doing studio architecture from the campsite deep in the British Columbia wilderness. That is my goal.
I want to be the first driver to drive Elon Musk's Tesla rig, which is just, kind of a concept. But
the ideal thing here is when it's automated is that you'll be in the truck getting your downtime, and you'll only be activated once it finally pulls off the freeway. There's going to be some interim hybrid-y situation where you won't be driving while it's on Highway 5. But then finally, when you get into the Oakland port, all of a sudden you kick in and now your driving hours begin and the computer ends, and then you can, do 4 hours and get back into the back for another 8. And that's where I think you're going to see some interesting hybrid stuff where the human's still going to be needed.
So the young generation, don't let the fact that, you think AI is going to replace all the truckers out there and everything. They're moving in that direction, but it's a long way off. Even the safety technology they have now, like a lot of times you have to override it. Doesn't quite work to be a shadow on an underpass, like collision warning, beep, 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 like just a shadow.
Yeah, that's something. I think it's just going to be the select interstate pre-selected routes where you can have 2 or 3, link up, and it'll only be in the remote areas. So, once you get out of the LA area, past San Bernardino. So that's where all that work's going to be. I mean, most of the work is not going from place to place, right? Most of the time truckers spending and air trucking across the country is all the local and daily stuff that's happening.
Somebody's got to deliver to the grocery stores and stores. And
the last mile is always, whether you're in technology, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in shipping, the last mile is where all the energy is expended. And that's humans, that's people walking indoors. That's drivers aren't going anywhere. And the need for drivers is going to far exceed any drop in driver demand because of automation. So that's long off. Well, I appreciate all your time and your energy today. I know you're got multiple podcasts going on today. I know you're into Hatchpee, so there's a million things to do. I mean, that's a cosmopolitan paradise. No, I'm just joking. It's a cute little trucking town.
There was a really good Indian restaurant I had last night. Man, tikka masala was amazing. And that was good. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I appreciate your time. Reaching out to me.
I do promise that, nearly every summer, I spend at least, 3 to 6 weeks somewhere south of the border, driving around, except for 2020, driving my RV around from here to San Diego. So when I'm out there, I'm definitely going to connect with you, and we'll see when we can get our 2 paths across, and you can come and relax in my RV for an hour and then get back on the road.
That'd be great. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
So we'll run into each other, and I appreciate your time, and be really safe out there. We appreciate you. Don't forget, you guys are the most necessary element through all the pandemic. The grocery store folks, and then the truck drivers are the people who kept us all fed and going. So keep in mind who those truck drivers are out there. Everything you have came from a truck. So keep that in mind. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. All right. Take care.
Cheers.
All around, but I got all the time in the